Hey there, pirates! Welcome aboard the Anime No Mi channel. If there is one concept that defines Zoro's evolution throughout One Piece, it might be the idea that his strength has always been one step ahead of his own legend. From the very moment he wielded his swords and declared he would become the greatest swordsman in the world, every challenge has been a piece of a much larger puzzle, building a warrior whose mere presence already carries the weight of the era in which he lives. But what happens when this path takes him to a new horizon, a step beyond what until now seemed to be his peak? The answer lies in the one thing that is still missing for Zoro to complete his journey as a true monster among the giants of the new era. A final training, a true power leap, and a teacher who understands what it means to carry the legacy of the Pirate King. This training is about to happen, and I'll explain how. I hope for your support to help our crew win, and to do so, you just need to click the thumbs up button, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. By doing this, you will win an incredible devil fruit, so just comment which fruit you want. Guys, this might sound like a destiny written in the stars. Since the time when Rayleigh trained Luffy, the question has always been in the air. If the captain received guidance from Roger's first mate, why wouldn't Zoro have a similar path? If Luffy is now in the hands of Scopper Gaban, as chapter 1139 suggests, then it's natural to imagine that this connection could extend to other names. After all, if Scopper Gaban was Roger's left hand and Rayleigh his right, it means he was as essential as the Dark King himself. If anyone is capable of taking a swordsman to the level of the Yonkou, it might just be him. What's interesting is that all of this has already been subtly building up for some time. If we look at Zoro's trajectory in the New World, it's evident that his strength has grown exponentially, but not definitively. Defeating King was an absurd feat, but those who really understood the fight saw that Zoro hadn't fully mastered the power of the King of Hell at that moment. He was able to use an advanced level of the Conqueror's Haki, yes, but for how long? How many times did he manage to activate that black aura around his body, controlling it like Rayleigh and Roger did against Whitebeard? The truth is that he's still in transition, and Oda knows his path can only take him to an even more absurd stage. The clearest hint of this came in chapter 1035, when Zoro not only awakened his advanced Conqueror's Haki, but also began to understand the concept of total cutting and absolute control over destruction. But the detail is that at the end of that fight, he passed out. His body collapsed because he hadn't yet mastered that state. In contrast, Roger and Rayleigh fought on equal terms with Whitebeard without even touching their blades. The level of power Zoro demonstrated against King was terrifying, but that still wasn't the peak of the mountain. Now, imagine a Zoro who, after the events of Elbaf, finds himself facing the possibility of training with someone who was part of Roger's crew, someone who understands the secrets of the sea and the true meaning of a swordsman's supremacy in the real world. Chapter 1139 already shows us that Scopper Gaban is not just a legend. He is recognized on the same level as Rayleigh and Roger by the giants of Elbaf, and is strong enough to challenge Luffy face to face without hesitation. And that brings us to the main point. Is Oda preparing a second time skip? If we look at the structure of One Piece, the idea of a new time skip is not as absurd as it might seem. The first one was essential in preparing the Straw Hats for the harsh reality of the new world. But still, each of them had a margin for growth that became evident as they faced increasingly impossible challenges. The issue now is that we are entering the final phase of the story. If Zoro is not yet on the level of Mihawk or the most powerful Yonkou, then a power leap will be necessary. And what better place for that to happen than Elbaf? Since Shanks made his appearance on Egghead and demonstrated that the Conqueror's Haki is the true answer against the Akuma no Mi, it became clear that the future of the story is leaning towards something Zoro has always represented: absolute power without depending on any other factor besides strength and will. Shanks defeated Kid with a single blow, but the most important detail was what Ben Beckman said: "Our captain doesn't like to resort to violence unnecessarily." This tells us that Shanks isn't just throwing raw power at his opponents. He fights in a way that makes each strike a calculated decision. This brings us to another question. If Scopper Gaban really is Roger's left hand and has a style similar to Rayleigh's, then he might be exactly what Zoro needs to complete his Haki and technique. In chapter 1139, we see that he was able to defeat hundreds of enemies alone, and his Mountain Eater nickname says all we need to know. If Rayleigh was the man who could face an admiral even in his old age, then Scopper Gaban might be the missing piece in the puzzle for Zoro to awaken his true level as a supreme warrior. But does this mean Zoro will surpass Mihawk? Here lies the most interesting detail. Since the beginning of the story, Zoro's goal has always been to be the greatest swordsman in the world. But this definition is ambiguous. What does it really mean to be the greatest? Does it mean simply surpassing Mihawk in a direct duel? Or does it mean becoming a living legend like Roger, someone who transcended the concept of swordsman to be a true monster without equal? Because the difference between Mihawk and Roger is simple. Roger didn't need an Akuma no Mi, nor a title, nor fame to be recognized as the greatest threat on the seas. If Zoro follows that path, he won't just surpass Mihawk. He will enter the realm of someone who can face anyone without relying on anything but his own spirit. And if there's an ideal moment for this to happen, perhaps it's now. Luffy is walking towards becoming the Pirate King, and a king needs a warrior of his caliber. If Oda truly wants to solidify Zoro's final transition to the level of a Yonkou, then training with Scopper Gaban might be exactly what's missing. The Conqueror's Haki is not something that can be mastered merely with willpower. It requires experience, understanding, and a true mentality of sovereignty. And who better to teach that than someone who sailed alongside Roger? If this happens, then the next time we see Zoro, he might not just be a stronger swordsman. He might be a monster, a true god of the blade, someone whose haki is strong enough to cut fate itself in half. And if this is the path Oda has chosen for Zoro, then Mihawk might be waiting for him at the end of the road. But the man standing before him won't be the same one who left Wano. He will be someone who has finally found the last stage of his own existence, and now walks beside his captain as the true warrior he was born to be. And this, perhaps, will be the moment when Zoro not only reaches the Yonkou level, but transcends that classification forever. Zoro has always been seen as Luffy's right hand, the one who would ensure his captain reached the top. But as the challenges became increasingly brutal, it became clear that even though he is a monster, Zoro still hasn't reached his absolute limit. The fight against King and Wano was the greatest proof of this. Unlike Luffy, who always had main opponents that forced him to grow with each arc, Zoro frequently faced opponents that solidified his strength, but never truly tested the limits of his existence. Against King, he was on the brink of defeat. This brings us to the crucial point. If Zoro struggled against King, how does he plan to face the future? The world is already in motion, and power levels have reached almost unreachable heights. Luffy, with Gear 5, not only defeated Kaido, but did so in a way that defied all logic of battle. He not only overcame the physical strength of a Yonkou, but entered a state where his abilities even defy the laws of reality. Oda made it clear that Gear 5 is a completely different awakening from anything we've seen before. Kaido, who was considered the strongest creature in the world, was defeated because Luffy reached a level of absolute freedom, where no physical or mental limitations stopped him from fighting however he wanted. What does this mean for Zoro? It means that if he wants to continue by Luffy's side in the final stage of the journey, he needs a power boost equivalent to the one Luffy gained. And here's the most intriguing question. In chapter 1139, it was said that Rayleigh and Gaban were comparable to Roger himself. This put Scopper Gaban on an absurd level, one that could contend with a Yonkou. If this information is true, then there is no doubt that Zoro needs this training. To face the upcoming enemies, figures like the Gorosei, Emu, Blackbeard, and even a potential clash against Shanks, Zoro can no longer be just a strong warrior. He needs to be a true monster, a colossus capable of fighting on equal terms with any enemy. The problem is that, so far, Zoro has shown nothing comparable to Gear 5. The awakening of his advanced Conqueror's Haki was a big step, but he still doesn't use this ability with the same natural ease as Shanks, Roger, or Rayleigh. He can't activate it for long periods, and his body isn't accustomed to the extreme strain this technique imposes. If Luffy can fight with a level of freedom so absurd that it surpasses natural laws, then Zoro needs to make up for it with something equally devastating. And now, I think it's the moment for him to gain this power. What do you think? Comment below. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.